Good morning, dear students. So, children, today we will do the 7th chapter of our English reader book Flamingo entitled The Interview. So, children, the interview, the chapter has been divided into two parts, right? So, like the other chapters we have been reading from your reader books, this is also not written in the story form, right? So, this chapter has been written in the form of an essay, right? In the form of more of a literary essay, I would say. So the chapter is divided into two parts. In part first, the general views about interview, why it is taken, how it is taken, and what is the people's perspective about it. So these things have been discussed. And part 2 of this chapter comprises of a discussion between two famous literary figures. So those are Mukund and Umberto Eco, right? So I hope all of you are well acquainted with the meaning of the word the interview. The meaning of the word interview is that to ask a person questions about his or her life, qualification, career, and future aspirations. So, this chapter, The Interview, has been written from the perspective of the traditional meaning of the word interview. So, I have just discussed with you the meaning that we generally happen to come across in life. Interviews are taken for the purpose of filling up job vacancies, for the purpose of filling up seats in a reputed organization. So this chapter, the interview, particularly refers to the interviews of the literary figures, of the novelists, poets, writers, essayists, etc. The people who deal with literature, right? So the author of this chapter is Christopher Sylvester. He himself was a student of history at Peterhouse, Cambridge, right? He was a reporter. Basically, he was a reporter for Private Eye for 10 years and he has written features of Vanity Fair, right? A very famous literary piece, in fact, a classic of English literature, I would say. So, the following chapter is an excerpt taken from, that is, it is a part taken from his introduction to the Penguin Book of Interviews. So, children, Christopher Sylvester has written a book entitled An Anthology from 1859 to the present day, right? An anthology from 1859 to the present day, right? So, this first part deals with that how interviews trouble a person, the one whose interview is being taken. See, minimum 2 people would be there in any interview. First, the person who is taking the interview, interviewer, and the one from whom the questions are being asked, that is called interviewee, right? Interviewee. So, see how interviews trouble the people from whom awkward, I would say, some nonsense or illogical questions are asked, and how the writer has successfully clarified to the readers that the celebrities, the famous personalities, like why they used to hate interviews so much, right? So this chapter is based on why they used to hate interviews so much. So beginning with the text of the chapter, see, that is, since its invention a little over 130 years ago. So children, when interview was introduced, when it started, about 130 years ago, right? The interview has become a commonplace of journalism. It means it has become a daily matter in case of journalism, right? So people often go in this line of journalism, right? They aspire to become journalists. So today almost everybody who is literate will have read an interview at some point in their lives, while from the other point of view, several thousand celebrities have been interviewed over the years, some of them repeatedly. So children, the author is not talking of oral interviews. We see many interviews of the politicians, of the Bollywood personalities, Hollywood personalities. So the people who have become celebrities, cricketers, footballers, right? So see, these people are involved into a conversation in which they say one thing or the other, and many a time it falls into a wrong line, and then these people are scandalized for saying such words. Okay, so see, children, in this first paragraph, like 5 to 6 lines, whichever I have read, so children, the writer Christopher Sylvester is talking of the fact that everybody who is literate, means every person who is literate, it means who is educated, will have read. It means the writer Christopher Sylvester is talking of the written interviews. So especially in the previous times, the interviews were taken in written, right? So see, every person must have read one interview or the other of the celebrities, cricketers, footballers, people from film industries, people from various famous organizations who have achieved something outstanding, something extraordinary in their life. So they are interviewed by the reporters. So Christopher Sylvester is talking of one such interview, and here he says that many people have read one or the other account of interview of the celebrities who are interviewed at least once or several times in their lifetime, right? Some of them are interviewed several times in their life. So next line. So it is hardly surprising that opinions of the interview, of its functions, methods and merits vary considerably. Hardly surprising means it is not surprising that opinions of the interview, the functions of interview, methods and merits vary considerably. It means every interview is different. Every interview is taken for a different purpose. The method of taking every interview may be different. Its merits and demerits may also vary. Vary means change, right? So, some might make quite extravagant claims for it as being in its highest form a source of truth, and in its practice an art. So what he says, that some might make, it means some people might make quite extravagant claims, means claims, actually extravagant means exaggerated claims, for it as being in its highest form a source of truth. It means many journalists boast of the matter that interviews are a source of truth, and in its practice an art. So others, usually celebrities who see themselves as its victims. Children, a very modern line. The writer here says that the celebrities consider themselves as its victims. So I have underlined it. See, the celebrities who consider themselves as its victims might despise. Despise means hate, right? Might despise the interview as an unwarranted intrusion. Unwarranted means unjustified. Unwarranted intrusion. Unwarranted means unjustified. Intrusion means interference, right, into their lives, or feel that it somehow diminishes them. Just as in some primitive cultures, it is believed that if one takes a photographic portrait of somebody, then one is stealing the person's soul. See, a very big thing. One is stealing the person's soul. So it has been said by some of the writers, some of the celebrities, some of the popular personalities, that if their interview is taken, they become victim. Victim means shikar banna, right? So they become the victims. Why? Because they feel that unwarranted, it means unwanted, illogical, irrational and unjustified questions are asked about their life and career. Like, why you see, celebrities from Bollywood are often asked the questions. आपको इसके साथ देखा गया था last week. Why are you roaming with this particular person from 2 months? Do you have any relationship with that? Why have you not been gymming for these 3 weeks? You have become so slim. Why are you losing weight? Why are you gaining weight? Why are you doing this? Why are you going there? Why are you not coming out of your house? So several awkward questions are being asked in the interviews taken, right? So that's why the writer here says that some people think that taking an interview, it is just like as if takes a photographic portrait of somebody, and his or her soul is stolen means stealing one's soul means taking one's peace of mind, taking the person out of its body, right? So see here he adds that V.S. Naipaul feels that V.S. Naipaul, I hope you know, he is known as a cosmopolitan writer. In his travel books and his documentary works, he presents his impressions of the country, of his ancestors that in India. Like he received a Nobel Prize for literature in the year 2001, right? V.S. Naipaul. So a very famous writer, a very prominent writer, in fact, I would say. Naipaul feels that some people are wounded by interviews. Wounded doesn't mean कि उनके घुटने पे चोट लग जाती है. Wounded means they are emotionally wounded. Their sentiments, their feelings are hurt when interviewers ask them awkward questions and lose a part of themselves. It means they lose some of their reputation willingly or unwillingly. Lewis Carroll is also a famous writer. He is the creator of Alice in Wonderland, a wonderful piece of writing in English literature. So Lewis Carroll was said to have had a just horror of the interviewer. Interviewer means the person who takes interview. It means a very famous writer, Lewis Carroll, was afraid of the people who take other people's interviews. And he never consented to be interviewed. He never consented to be interviewed, right? So it means he has never given his consent for appearing in an interview. Of course, the journalists have to ask, right, why they want to be do they want to appear in an interview, would they like to talk about their life and career? So Lewis Carroll never gave consent on this thing, right? So Carroll was always of the view that no interview would be taken up. Okay, so I hope that's clear till now. So see the next page. It was his horror of being lionized. It was his horror of means it was the horror of being lionized. Lewis Carroll was afraid of being lionized means being treated as a VVIP, very important person, or being treated as a celebrity, which made him thus repel would-be acquaintances. Thus repel means which made him repel means keep at a long distance his would-be acquaintances means the people who would be his known interviewers like reporters and journalists, and the persistent petitioners. Persistent means continuous. Petitioners who keep on sending written requests to Lewis Carroll that we want to interview you, we want to take your interview, right? So, but Lewis Carroll never gave consent for appearing in an interview. Okay? So, it's written here that, petitioners for his autograph. It means many people approached Lewis Carroll for taking his interview, taking autograph, but he would always deny doing so. And he would afterwards relate the stories of his success in silencing all such people with much satisfaction and amusement. It means he always used to shock people by achieving particular milestones in the field of English literature. Like he used to write such great literature that people were wonderstruck after reading his writings, right? So next writer Christopher Sylvester talks about as Rudyard Kipling, a very famous one. So children, Rudyard Kipling was a prolific writer who was known as a poet of the common soldier. He was known as the poet of the common soldier, right? Kipling's Jungle Book, which is very famous story of Kimball O'Hara and his adventures in the Himalayas, is considered as a children's classic all over the world. His literature is meant for the reading by children. He has written Jungle Book, children's stories. Okay, so Rudyard Kipling expressed an even more condemnatory attitude towards the interviewer. It means Rudyard Kipling was also against the people who interview others, and he was also against the fact that interview takes out good out of the celebrities or the people. So what was the view of his wife? See, his wife Caroline, Rudyard Kipling's wife's name was Caroline, right? His wife Caroline writes in her diary for 14 October 1892 that their day was wrecked. Wrecked means spoiled, kharab karna. That their day was wrecked by two reporters from Boston. Obviously, they must have come to take the interview of Rudyard Kipling. Further read, she reports that her husband was saying to the reporters, like, why do I refuse to be interviewed? Right? Her husband was saying to the reporters, why I refuse to be interviewed. It means Rudyard Kipling was asking the reporters that why do I refuse, why should he refuse to be interviewed? Because it is immoral. Immoral seems a short word, but it has a deep meaning. It means the one who or which is without any morals, without any moral values. Rudyard Kipling called interview as an immoral thing. So children, this can also be asked in your short answer type questions, that why Rudyard Kipling or what word Rudyard Kipling used to describe interviews, right? It is a crime. Rudyard Kipling called interview, it is a crime, just as much as of a crime as an offense against my person, as an assault, do harm to somebody, and just as much merits punishment, right? So as much merits punishment. He was of the view that interview is not at all a fair thing. It should not be taken at all. It's a kind of assault. It's a kind of offense. Means it's a thing like a crime is committed, right? So he was against it. It is cowardly and vile. Vile, something that hides, that creates secrets. He considered interview as a cowardly and vile thing. No respectable man would ask it, much less give it. It means he was also of the opinion that no respectable man would appear in an interview, and many, much less give it means a very few people appear in interviews. It means he was of the opinion that if a reporter or a journalist is respectable, is holding a respectable position, they will not come for taking interview of others. And if some celebrity is worth a person, he will not appear in an interview. It means Rudyard Kipling was against both these things, taking interview and appearing in an interview. Okay, next line. Yet Kipling had himself perpetrated such an assault, imposed. On the one hand, Kipling's wife gave this statement that how Rudyard Kipling was against interviews, but here the writer says that Rudyard Kipling himself perpetrated such an assault on which writer? Such an assault on Mark Twain only a few years before. It means he himself had taken the interview of Mark Twain only a few years back, right? H.G. Wells in an interview in 1894. Children, H.G. Wells, he was an English novelist, journalist, socialist, as well as a historian, right? You may be able to find his best works written as Time Machine, The Invisible Man, and The War of the Worlds. The Invisible Man, the story which you read in your 10th standard, the Footprints Without Feet story, that is taken from his novel The Invisible Man. So H.G. Wells is that writer. Okay, so H.G. Wells, in an interview in 1894 referred to the interviewing ordeal. H.G. Wells called it interviewing ordeal, which ordeal means a very painful, a very harsh experience, but was a fairly frequent interviewee, and 40 years later found himself interviewing Joseph Stalin. So Joseph Stalin, he was a great Russian revolutionary and an active political organizer. Stalin was an active, you must have heard his name, Stalin, in history, right? So this person, H.G. Wells, who was also against interviews, he himself involved himself interviewing Joseph Stalin, right? A Russian revolutionary and politician. Next name in the line is Saul Bellow. Now children, Saul Bellow was a playwright as well as a novelist. Bellow's works were influenced, widely by World War II. So Saul Bellow has written postmodern literature. What is given by Christopher Sylvester here? Saul Bellow, who had consented to be interviewed on several occasions. It means Saul Bellow was a kind of person who used to give consent for appearing in an interview, that yes, I would take that, yes, I would appear in that interview. Several occasions, nevertheless, once described interviews as being like thumbprints on his windpipe. Something which forces a person to breathe less. He considered interviews as such a monstrous thing. Yes, despite the drawbacks of the interview, it is a supremely serviceable medium of communication. So what view is given here? That despite of all the demerits of the interview, it is supremely means a very high serviceable medium of communication. Means interview is a medium of communication, exchange of thoughts and ideas among people, right? So I hope that's also clear till now. So see what is given next. These days, more than at any other time, our most vivid impressions of our contemporaries are through interviews. The writer says that these days, more than at any other time, it means especially in these modern times, our most clear impressions of our contemporaries are through interviews. Suppose we want to have a peep into the life of a celebrity Virat Kohli. In the life of celebrities, you may name any of them, Alia Bhatt, Ranveer Singh, Deepika Padukone, any celebrity of these days. So interviews are a very good source of taking the clear impressions from the life of contemporary celebrities. If we want to know about them, know about their opinion, so interview is one of the best methods, right? Next, the writer says that Dennis Bryan has written almost everything of moment reaches us through one man asking questions of another. So Dennis Bryan, another literary figure, has written that almost everything of moment reaches us. It means whatever has happened, whatever is going on in the mind of a person, it reaches us through one man asking questions of another. We cannot go to Virat Kohli to ask questions about his life and career. We cannot go to Deepika Padukone to know about her success mantra. Of course, if they are interviewed by one person, if one person has taken their interview and published it on social media, we all will be able to know about their story, right? So this side is explained by Dennis Bryan. Last, the writer says that because of this, the interviewer holds a position of unprecedented power and influence. It means the interviewer, the person who takes interview, it means the reporter holds a position of unprecedented. Unprecedented means that cannot be equalized, that is not experienced by anyone else. Unprecedented power and influence. All in all, the writer wants to make the statement justified that interview is a good thing. It should be taken so that people may come to know about the life of celebrities and the contemporary popular people, right? So this was all about part 1 of the chapter, the interview. In this, the views of various literary figures have been given by Christopher Sylvester, that why they hate interviews so much. They feel that in taking or appearing in an interview is a kind of interference in the personal matters of a celebrity or any popular person. So interviews should be neglected as far as possible, according to most of the people. They don't want to appear in any kind of interview. But the reporters, they consider their work as a superior one. They consider that interviews should be taken. Of course, the reporters would say, why not? They would say, that it is their profession. It is their profession, and if they won't take interview, their profession would fail. They would fail in their profession. So that's why he has tried to justify that why interviews should be taken, right? So this was all about part 1. So in the subsequent video, in our next video, we will be doing part 2 of this chapter. Stay at home, stay connected. Happy learning. Thank you.